Hello everyone, this is going to be a little bit longer of a video because this is going to be a full sculpt, or at least a partial. So what I just did is I just imported this bikini in from an FBX on top of, my current avatar. And we notice that this bikini has its own armature. So the thing about this bikini is we look at all the parts, and all the parts seem to be skin tight, yeah? All these parts, the sandals are skin tight. The bikini is basically skin tight. It has some strings, but we could rig those later if we really wanted them to. But in reality, they won't be a big enough problem to rig. So what we're going to do is we're just going to delete the armature right away. It causes some funny issues. But that's super easily fixed. We're going to scale these down. Scale them down, man. And more 0, 0, 1. This is what happens when somebody doesn't properly scale an object, is it does this sometimes. Rotate it exactly, and then boom, it's seeming to fit our object. Deleting the armature there made it multiply in 100 by size. That happens sometimes if people don't scale it by unit scale. Alright, so I gotta pick out which of these bikinis I actually want. This is like a downwards version of the bikini. I don't want that. I don't wear shoes, so I'm gonna get rid of the shoes. But we're gonna have the top and the bottom to sculpt today. I'm gonna start with the top. We're gonna turn on symmetry because this seems to be a symmetrical object, and I'm gonna sculpt this on top of my clothes. Obviously, normally you wouldn't do this, but I am here on YouTube, so move this down, and you'll see what I'm doing is I call it it's kind of like you overcompensate for what you want to sculpt. I'm using a very big cursor on elastic deform to sculpt this into place. And the reason why I'm using a cursor that is so large is because I want to overcompensate these movements so that I don't make these tiny little dents in the object that make it look terrible and ruin its topology. So I'm making these massive movements. And yeah, sometimes I will go into the avatar, but that just allows you to see where you need to change the object further and pull it out. So don't be worried about getting it right on your first movement of your mouse. What you want to do is you want to move it in a way that, yes, you get that clipping into the object or the avatar, and you want to move it out after, and that allows you to change the shape pretty easily. So I'm just going to move this into place, and we get that clipping, and then we fix the clipping. The point is that we want it to clip in so that we can make it clip out. And we get very large, very in-depth movements. And you see, even though we moved it that far, this part isn't clipping in, so we don't need to fix that. We fix this. And it's all because of those large movements that we can do that. We make adjustments here and there. And eventually you'll have to work with like bad topology, which means that there isn't that many vertices that are set up or whatever that are in good places, and you'll have this clipping because there just isn't enough polygons to do the kind of curves that you want to do. This will especially happen on bustier models with some clothing types. But this clothing was not made for my model at all. This was made for some random booth model. Yeah, I'm just going to sculpt it over, and I'm going to make a big movement, and I'm going to see where it clips, and then I'm going to adjust it where it's clipping. So I'll make a big movement in the middle, and then I'm going to adjust it where it's clipping, because it's not clipping where I pushed it down, it's clipping around that area. So we're going to move that separate. We'll notice that this bikini is not entirely symmetric because I'm having clipping on one side and not on the other. So I'm going to move it out in a non-symmetric fashion from that side. And we look around, and look, we have no clipping. And it seems to be pretty tight to the body. Yeah, it looks pretty nice actually. What we're gonna do now is we're simply gonna add it to the avatar. We're gonna click on this. We're gonna control click it onto our armature. Control click it on the armature. And then we're going to go here to this little modifier here. We're going to make sure that there's an armature modifier in here that's on our armature. So object armature that we're currently on. But it's currently not weighted to our avatar. It's weighted to something completely different. So that's why we're going to use Sent from Space's easy weight painting tool. We're going to select the mesh that we want to weight paint it to. In this case, we're going to use the little eye blotter, and we're going to see which one our body is. Our body is called torso. And then we're going to transfer the weights of torso onto the bikini. And then we can use cats to go into pose mode, and we'll see that pose mode has fixed it so that we are indeed weighted to our body. It should be pretty good. You can notice that it works on both of our chest bones here. It's clipping through some stuff, but you know, we're not expecting that much movement. And if we move our neck, we should see it get affected by that. We're seeing some small issues because it's low poly here, but that shouldn't be too big of an issue. For the most part, just clicking that Sent from Space thing should work. I might also recommend using some smoothing settings. I'll smooth like twice, and that might work a little bit better if we go click on that mesh again. Transfer weights. There's a little smoothing, auto smoothing tool. And now that will do is that'll smooth out the weight painting. Yeah, that looks a little bit better. Wonderful, wonderful. So now that we have almost no clipping on our top, we should be good to go. And you'll have to go into game and check out if there's any more clipping. You can do some quick sculpts to get rid of it. Yeah, that's how you sculpt on a top. I'm not going to do the bottom for today because it's the same process, but yeah. Overestimate and then correct. That's how you sculpt properly with elastic deform. And sometimes I'll use smooth tool as well to smooth things out once I've messed them up. But I'll go over that in a different video. Thank you.